Hello and welcome back to another edition of Handicapping with Race Lens. I'm Dan Tordjman with America's Best Racing, joined by two good friends and spectacular handicappers, Scott Coles. Excuse me, Scott. It's Derby week and I'm already slacking here. I left off a letter. And Christina Blacker, you know her and love her from TVG and from everywhere else. And so we are so excited to be back here streaming and doing a full rundown, handicapping not only Kentucky Derby 148, but some undercard races on Saturday, as well as the big and potentially best betting race of the weekend, which is the Kentucky Oaks, which we're going to start with momentarily. Before we do, just to let you know, we're going to be using Race Lens here, and we're going to show you how to use the product. There are a ton of great promotions. If you're not already a Race Lens customer, this is the week to get in, because for a limited time, there is a $1 promotion. A $1 promotion means if you've never had Race Lens before, you get a 1-month unlimited Race Lens subscription for just $1. All you got to do is go to Equibase, click on the Race Lens tab. Once you're there and you've got the package in your cart, use promo code RLM1E. That's RLM1E. I'll repeat this again at the end of this show. And a couple of other promotions for those who have had Race Lens before, interested in re-upping. You got a friend who might want to use it. Race Lens quarterly subscription now, just $99, $200 discount there. The promo code is TCRL 99, so Triple Crown Race Lens 99, TCRL 99, and then premium PPs. If you're looking for a full past performance package, regular price for Equibase premium PPs is $274.95. Big discount right now, $99 using promo code TCEQB99. And again, all of this will be repeated at the end of the show. We'll also post links on social media that'll have all these promotions written out for you, but lots of good deals on Race Lens right now. And once we're done with this webinar, you will surely want to dabble and look through some of the other races that we won't be able to cover. So let's get to the action. We're going to start with Friday's races, and really the one you see on your screen here is the one everyone's talking about. It's the Kentucky Oaks. Christina, we're going to start with you. The morning line favorite is Nest. You're going to tell us why you like Nest, but there are so many horses in here who have a legitimate shot. This is such a deep field. Tell us how you saw it all unfolding.
Hey, Dan, this is such an exciting edition of the Oaks. And we have the undefeated fillies coming in. We have one coming over from Dubai and Shahama, who moves to Todd Fletcher's barn. And we have the 2-year-old champion in Echo Zulu coming back. I wish I could tell you I was picking away from the favorite, but Nest is just too good. Let's start with her. She's the number 4, 5-2 on the morning line. I want to pick up the Ashland replay. This is her most recent race. She's going to end up drawing clear by about 8 1/4 lengths in here. And actually, I was at Keeneland this day, and I was concerned that the short stretch to the mile and a 16th was going to be a problem for her. I picked against Nest, even though on class, I felt like she was probably the best horse in the race. But this is what I love about her, is that she showed that versatility. You can see she's on the outside right now in that orange cap, the Rapoli Silks under Irad Ortiz. And he was able to move her a little bit earlier than I think she's used to, and probably earlier than she's comfortable with. This isn't her best running style. I think they would have liked to wait until they square up for home and then turn her loose. But the fact that she could show that, and then as soon as she switches leads, has an acceleration. You don't see that kind of turn of foot on the dirt very often. And I think that's a real special quality in any kind of horse. So Nest really proved to me in the Ashland that she was the horse for this year's Kentucky Oaks. On top of that, came back to Race Lens and did a little bit of research just about her pedigree. I'll start with her dam in terms of the dirt routers that she has produced. 7 winners from 23 starters. Of course, Nest kind of contributes to that as well. Overall, 57% in the money. These horses are continuing to get better as the distances progress. Nest also already has a win at the mile and 1/8 back to the Demoiselle in her 2-year-old season. Then I'll go to the sire for some research as well. Ellis Starr came on to TVG and talked a lot about the offspring of Curlin and how well they have done. You think of other horses that Todd Fletcher has trained, and you kind of filter this to see some of those winners. 9 winners from 40 starters, and I got pretty specific, talking exactly about the distance that we're working with in the Oaks with that 9 furlongs, talking about females as well. in graded stakes, 23% win rate, 55% in the money. The pedigree is there for Nest. The last kind of tab I checked on, and I was just curious, but this really solidified my opinion, is to filter for late pace on the True Odds page. She has the strongest late pace figure, as you can see at the top there, 117.5, and it's by a pretty significant margin. So I think that goes a long way for the case with Nest. As far as some of the other horses in there, I would not be surprised by any of them. Really, Secret Oath is a horse that I've always been really high on. I think her third place effort in the Arkansas Derby is so much better than looked. She got in so much trouble that day. Luis Contreras asked her to stop and start so many times. And actually after the race, my husband said, "Oh, would you take him off after that race?" And I said, "I would have taken him off after the Honeybee." And that's when she won, and he got her in a lot of trouble that day too. So no disrespect to Luis Contreras. He does a very good job a lot of the times, but I think he's just not really working with this filly. Luis Saez is aboard for the Oaks, but she draws the rail, and I think that could be a little bit problematic. I just think she might end up in some traffic trouble. And she's also had a little bit of time in between some of her works. I don't love her training pattern coming in. So ultimately, that's why I made Nest the top selection, even though I felt that Secret Oath was just as classy. And I'm sure we'll talk about some of the other horses in here. Echo Zulu, I think the distance is going to be a little too far for her. I think the fact that some of the other speed in the race drew inside of her is a little bit of a concern, because I think she's going to get pressed. The only way I saw her getting the 1 1/8 was to get loose on the lead, perhaps. Kathleen O, I have a lot of respect for as a daughter of Upstart. She took such a big step forward in her last race, getting finally that 2-turn configuration. And that's an angle that I've looked at on Race Lens, really going back to the 2-year-old form for a lot of the offspring of Upstart. And then the last horse I just want to touch on before I let you guys give your input as well is the 13 Shahama. She's a price horse that I'm kind of intrigued by in here. And again, it was back to some of the research on Raceland, going to the dams. She's produced 26% dirt route winners. And I didn't realize until I got a little deeper with that, is that she's actually a half to Looking at Lucky. I feel like this is kind of a forgotten tidbit that really goes a long way. You're talking about a Preakness winner there in this family. She's also running for the first time from Todd Fletcher's barn. He is just a machine. I mean, you think he's got what, 3 for each of these races coming up this weekend, 61 to 180 days with Todd Fletcher with these new acquisitions. He gets 21% winners. He's taken her to the gate a bunch because she's a little slow coming out of the gate. He's really left no stone unturned. So I think you could probably expect some improvement from Shahama. Whether or not she's good enough to win, I don't know. But at that price from this barn, I'll be interested in her and maybe use her underneath a little bit.
And Hall of Famer Todd Fletcher has also won the Kentucky Oaks 4 times, looking to add a 5th here. Scott, one of the horses that Christina mentioned, I know is one who has caught your eye. You also noted the jock change when I glanced at your notes earlier, but why don't you tell us a little bit more about why you like Secret Oath?
Yeah, I just think that jockey upgrade is massive here. And if you actually look back, Secret Oath's never had a top jockey ever. Not one race, and still has had the resume that she's had. I think Louis is an aggressive rider. Luis Saez, that is. A little confusing there. But the spot that the rail with a good jockey, I mean, it could be advantageous if you can drop in and be a little bit closer than she has been. I think she had 3 daylight wins, didn't really have to show her best, and then tried the boys in the Arkansas Derby, which will kind of maybe give us an idea of how solid that Arkansas Derby was based on how she runs. But the trip in the Arkansas Derby, it certainly didn't work out according to plan. And I do think Saez will help something like that. And I think Lucas was really upset about it. But there's all sorts of trouble. But if this blitz into the turn and how much ground is made up so fast, it's a little more aggressive. And usually this type of move, not quite a middle move, but it's close enough to a middle move, as you see the 6 going all the way around the outside, passing everyone. You have to go insanely wide. You have to run insanely fast just to get up to the solid spots where the others are. I just think that took so much juice out of her. Whereas if you were in a little bit of a better spot early, or if you waited a little bit longer to make that move and you kind of slowly crept up, there's just so many things that I like about the interior pace figures that you're going to see in there where so much energy was wasted at probably the worst possible time. And when you spread that kind of thing out, and with the finish this horse had, not really riding her like too aggressively at the end, kind of saving something for, what could have been the target. I mean, I don't know exactly. I mean, they wanted to win the Arkansas Derby for sure, but I mean, was it the goal? I don't know. But I know that there's nothing wrong with that third place finish against some pretty good horses in there. And then before that, and she was also favored against those horses. Let's not take that away. That's also kind of crazy. Nothing against Nest. I'm looking for a little bit of value. When I saw the morning line, I thought, yeah, right. But maybe that would be fantastic. You'll see me betting with both hands if I get 6-1. But I just think, I don't think anybody deserves to be 5-2 in here, but I just don't think I don't think Secret Oath will be 6-1. It's going to make for an interesting situation as far as at the windows, because there's 4 horses that could take a lot of money in here, and I just don't know exactly how it's going to shake out. Not my specialty, but I think it's something to keep an eye on the day, because if any of them get up a little bit too high, they could be a great opportunity if it's a horse you like. But if you just show, also what we have on the screen now is the pace projector. It's a little more aggressive than I think the ride will be in Secret Oath, but that spot would be great if you can just sneak through the rail and be uncontested. But they have the one right up there early, and then just losing it a little bit late because they don't think the horse has as high of a win probability. That's just for you to decide. But I think Louis will get the horse in the race a little bit better than it's been recently. And like I said, it's just nothing against these other jockeys, but if you have a horse in major races, those jockeys would not be on your list of names that you're calling. And now you have one of the best riders, I think, in the country. All that could be, I mean, the rail in this type of race, I don't think it's that bad. If he gets shuffled, I mean, it's got quite a bit of kick. Hopefully Louis can just find a good spot. And if you're up close, I mean, you could see a pretty big effort. So I'm just excited. And I hope that she doesn't take that much money, even though I think she will. But we'll see. And then I guess a couple others, I'm kind of worried now. Christina likes Shahama. I like Shahama as a long shot. I've heard a lot of people on Twitter liking Shahama. I'm starting to think Shahama's not going to be that big of a price, especially with Pratt and Fletcher and a little bit of hidden form. I believe it's a Munnings, correct? If it is in the slop, Munnings have had great slop form over the last couple of years. If that horse could be upgraded quite a bit, if it's a mess. Another thing where it's kind of up in the air. It looks like we're going to get rain on Thursday and a fair amount on Friday at this time. And if that happens, I mean, Shahama's one to watch. I wouldn't discount Desert Dawn completely either for at least getting a piece. The horse can finish. And I feel like the San Diego Oaks is just kind of getting ignored, which I understand because there's so many classy horses. It's a very tough race. And then my wild card's Echo Zulu. I don't think the horse has no chance, but that comeback race, if that horse was cranked at all, was not impressive at all. It makes me terrified. The horse takes any pressure at all, is not going to be able to get the distance. But then again, does Asmussen really crank horses for that type of race? I don't know. It's for everyone to decide. It's going to be a very interesting. I just think I could see the horse getting bet like crazy, and that could be your clue. But there's also distance concerns, and I just feel like you can get value on so many horses in this race. It's just tough to play Echo Zulu based on what we've seen so far. One race, and it wasn't too special. So we shall see. But I am excited to see what Secret Oath, and if I get 5 or 6-1, I'll be ecstatic.
Christina, let me ask you briefly before I share mine. How do you think this pace unfolds here? Echo Zulu, you got Ugiri, I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, to her inside. How do you see the pace unfolding?
Yeah, I think that the fact that Ugiri drew inside of Echo Zulu, I think Florent Giroux is going to have to be aggressive with his filly, because that's sort of how she runs best. You look at her races. I mean, she's won when she's able to make that lead. I think those two are going to hook up early, and I think they'll probably have some company. It's a big day. There's a lot of atmosphere. There's a lot of people out there, and you never know which one of these fillies might end up a little bit nervous. So I think that those two are going to hook up. I think that Nest is going to have a similar trip, and that's why I really like what Irad Ortiz was able to do last time out in kind of sitting her mid pack. And then I think you do have, Secret Oath a little bit farther off the pace. I think you have Desert Dawn back there. Kathleen O is a real deep closer. As good as she is, I think she's best when she's able to mount that one rally. Same thing for Cocktail Moments. I think it'll be a pretty honest pace, but I think the presence of Ugiri is what really makes Echo Zulu a little bit vulnerable. And I think that overall, Echo Zulu is one of those 2-year-olds that was very forward. Steve Asmussen said that he knew right away that she was going to be good when she came into the barn. I think the rest of the class has caught up now. We've turned 3 and she's good, but I don't think she's any better. And I think if you look at some of her speed figures, whether you're looking at Equibase speed figures, Bayer, Brisnet, Thorograph, she's actually the same this whole time, her whole 2-year-old season, and even a little bit slower on some speed figures in that return race. So that's what worries me the most about Echo Zulu. I think she's always been good, but everybody's caught her at this point.
Yeah, I'm with both of you on Echo Zulu. The one scenario in which, I do think she's moved up is if Ugiri doesn't break, or, if on the day Ugiri, if that team decides that their best chance of winning is maybe taking off slightly and not getting into a duel with Echo Zulu, then you have Echo Zulu, who's obviously got a ton of class, alone on the lead, and then a horse like that could get brave. So something to think about. Another thing to think about is what Scott mentioned earlier related to the pedigree on Shahama with Munnings, is that we're handicapping this stuff, all these races a couple of days out. You absolutely have to factor in whatever weather conditions are come Friday and Saturday, and take a look at how the track's playing. On these days, typically, as we know, speed is generally really, really good on the dirt. And so a lot of times, all of us, if you notice a trend in the earlier races, speed is holding up, and you love this deep closer like Shahama, for example, who doesn't break all that well and has to make a big move from off the pace, or you like Secret Oath, who might be more forwardly placed, but will be coming from off the pace. Maybe, you kind of wonder a little bit if nobody else is closing. On the flip side, if the track's playing fair or if it's favoring closers, those 2 horses in particular, I think, are really attractive. I also like, Christina, I agree with you on Nest for all the reasons you mentioned, top late pace figure. The horse was absolutely geared down to win by over 8 lengths, despite traveling wide for large portions of that race that we saw, the replay of the Ashland. This is also a full sister to Idol, who, if you follow the California circuit or if you follow big races, won the big cap at 1.25 miles last year. So basically, the longer he went, the better he's gotten. And, I could see the same thing with Nest here, just loving every bit of this distance. So Nest, top choice for me, but I'll give you a little bit of a long shot before we move on, because we do have a lot of races to get to on Saturday. I like Nostalgic, the 2-horse here. I want to take a quick look back at the Gazelle. This is a really impressive move. We're going to pick it up midway down the backstretch. Nostalgic is the 3-horse. You can see sort of drafting in behind Venti Valentine, who's also in this race and potentially a pace factor, but you can see the pace on this day, not very fast. 24 and change first quarter, 49 and 1 to the half. I think they go a touch faster as they get to 3 quarters, but Venti Valentine has no excuse not to win this race. It's absolutely loose on an uncontested lead, going extremely slow. Is obviously the favorite too. You see Classy Edition there pumping, trying to close ground on Venti Valentine. You'll see all these horses start, asking for, the jocks asking for a little bit more on their horses, and they don't really make any impact. But look at Nostalgic. It's not so much, look, Nostalgic does save ground here. It's not so much that Nostalgic kind of gets this good trip and, and is able to get by a horse who was loose on the lead. It's just that narrow-ish opening. That's a brave move right there for a 3-year-old filly who's still learning, who's still coming into her own. Shooting that gap right there, making that move, to me is visually impressive. And I think you're going to have to be brave. You're going to have to make a move or two like that if you're going to win a race like the Kentucky Oaks, especially if you're going to win it from off the pace. And so that to me was something visually that I liked. And so 15-1 is what I'm seeing on the morning line with all of these favorites that we talked about who have legitimate shots and legitimate claims to favoritism. I think you may get Nostalgic at an even bigger price there. If you look at the adjusted true odds on the right side and the true odds, you got 27-1 and 32-1. So what that means is that Race Lens is telling you that based on the Race Lens matrix, based on the algorithm, Nostalgic is probably deserving of higher odds. And so you may get a much better price on Nostalgic. So also on that last screen, just briefly, Nostalgic did have the highest, the fourth highest late peaks figure, 104.5, which actually sounds like a radio station. And then just a quick pedigree note, it's Medaglia d'Oro out of a Tappet mare. To me, that screams, will love the added distance, trained by Bill Mott. And you see the little trainer stat box there, gives you all the relevant information you need all in one sort of concise section there, a little box with 21% with Jose Ortiz up, 27% when the horse has won his or her last race. All positive signs. I think this is a horse who's improving, showed an interesting dimension, showed some bravery, and I think has the pedigree to really run a big race. So I'm excited about this horse. Will definitely get overlooked because of all the other talent in this race. So a very exciting edition of the Kentucky Oaks. But now we move on to Saturday. And Saturday, we're going to cover 3 undercard races, and then we're going to cover the big one. We're going to kick it back to Scott for race 7, which is the Pat Day Mile. This race significant because it is the comeback race for Jack Christopher, last seen winning the Champagne, but then scratched out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, where he likely would have gone off as the favorite. Jack Christopher is back. And Scott, I know you're scared of Jack Christopher if he comes back like the Jack Christopher that we saw. And so you're potentially seeing an opportunity here for a little bit of a price.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not be scared? I mean, if those 2 races that he's had have been insane, it's just you have, like you said, you have a scratch, you have a long layoff, you just have to look at the workout reports as we get closer and more information is released, and kind of look at the board and see. I mean, you could see this horse. I could easily see this horse going off at 4 to 5. I just don't know if that's good enough value with a few unknowns. I mean, the horse could easily just blow this field away. I mean, it's not that tough of a field. But I've had my eye on Papa Cap for a long time, and I'm so excited that Pratt is going to be riding this horse now, because if I had to watch Gonzalez ride this horse again, I'm going to pull all the hair out I have left. That Florida Derby ride is like, what are you doing? I was so angry that day. Not that the horse was probably meant to go that far, but you could have sat in such a better spot. So when we watched the replay, Papa Cap, the 5 horse, and so you have 2 fast horses dueling, and they decide, can you back up just a little bit? Sorry.
As we back up, I want to say, Scott, I love your just relentless abuse of jocks today on this show. You are like, I am not holding
I'm not
back.
saying it's an easy job, but like, why would you sit in this spot right here, freeze it right here? Why would you sit in a 3-pronged duel when you could tuck in behind them, get the jump on the 2 horses that are sitting behind that ended up getting the best trips? You had a spot to either drop in, whatever. You saw the duel happening in front of you, and you still decided to have the worst possible trip, pressing 3 wide in horse. It's one of the worst trips you can have unless you get stuck. And you're not the best horse in the race. You're a bigger price. You had a chance to sit in the perfect spot, which is tucking in behind a duel. You chose to not only sit off them, but then go at them a little bit early, take the lead. I mean, you can play it now. Actually take the lead. I mean, this was impressive. I mean, after that spot, and then you take the lead against, 2 fast horses. Obviously, Classic Causeway starts to back up, but took it to simplification. At this point, I'm like, well, that's it. I was starting to cheer, and then I'm like, I don't know how you're going to sustain this, and then starts to back up a little bit, and the 2 horses that ended up, White Abario's coming right behind, gets the jump on Charge It. We'll get into this more later when we talk about the Derby, but those were the best trips. You could have the jump on both them while conserving energy. It's another thing about just energy distribution used all wrong. And Flavian Pratt is not going to do that. I mean, the dude is a machine. He puts the horses in the best spot possible. So if Jack Christopher is not right, this cutback in distance, I think, is exactly what Papa Cap's ultimately going to want to do. I think he's going to be a miler, 7 furlong type. You never blame anybody for when you have a talented horse for going on the trail, trying to make these longer distances to see if it's going to work. But the sooner you get realistic about what your horse really wants to do, the better. And I think Papa Cap is such a talented horse, and I've been waiting for so long for him to show it. And I think you get a good chance to do it this day. You can click on the research tab, and the way that I'll probably use Papa Cap, just in case the real Jack Christopher shows up, is I'll be keying in first, second, and third in the money percentage for Flavian Pratt in these types of races over the past year in dirt routes. I mean, you can sort it by all sorts of things, but he's 63% in the money. I mean, he's just we'll see if he gets bet down or if other people feel as strongly as I do. But with Jack Christopher there, possibly taking a ton of money, especially on a day like this, people start gravitating towards favorites and they get overbet. I think Papa Cap, if you can get 5 or 6 to 1, is a great horse to key in first, second, and third. The horse never quit trying, still took 4th in that Florida Derby. We'll find out if that was a good race or not. I'm still torn on that. I don't know if the Florida Derby was really good or really horrible. And it's like bending. It's horrible. It's so hard to figure out. But I just think there's so many things to like. The cutback is just perfect. And if nothing else, if you don't like him on the win meet, you can at least key in second and third if you think Jack Christopher's the best. And I just think this horse is going to give you an honest effort, and this is going to be exactly what the horse wants to do. So I'm just very excited about this horse, and I'm mostly excited about, despite Pratt probably ruining the price a little bit, if you'd had a no name, like a little bit lesser known jockey, I mean, you might have got a better price because people are going to bet Pratt just blindly on a day like this. But just love the spot, love the trip they could get, and I'm just very excited to finally get the right trip, the right distance, and just see what this horse is actually made of, because I don't think we've seen it yet.
Yeah, I think so. First off, in agreement that was not an optimal ride there. I will also say I hope that that Florida Derby turns out to be a decent race because, spoiler alert, I like Charge It in the Derby, and we'll watch we'll watch the stretch run again. We'll kind of look at some of what Charge It overcame when we get to the Derby. But I do think you'll get every bit of 6 to 1, to be honest. I mean, there is some depth to this field, and I think people are going to see those last 2 races. They're just going to look at the final result and the margin of defeat and might move on. I mean, yes. I mean, I think logically, a lot of people will say this horse needs to cut back and should be better suited here. I was actually surprised 6 to 1 in the morning line. I thought that was a little shorter than what
I know. I was hoping it was going to be a higher number as well, because I think some people do on these types of days also gravitate towards those numbers and just believe them blindly because they don't know any better, because there's so much dead money in all these pools. I was hoping to see an 8 or a 10, 12 somewhere in there next to his name, but then I looked at the depth of this field. I actually don't think it's that great, but
okay,
we'll see. It's all going to depend on Jack Christopher, and if that's the real Jack Christopher, or if it's if you have to be like on the front end to win that day. I mean, we'll learn a lot. We'll learn a lot about the Florida Derby. I mean, that's the most important thing, is that, like I talk about in the Oaks, telling you things about the Derby, but this races like this or other stakes where horses are falling out of will tell you a little bit about some of the other preps, and you can kind of start to piece the puzzle together a little bit for the Kentucky Derby itself. You just gotta stay agile on these types of days and kind of just take all the information in and see what you can learn and what you can improve, and just be willing to change a little bit of what you were going to do based on what you see in the earlier spots. So
it sounds like you've been chasing Papa Cap. A horse I've been chasing is Doppelganger, who's also in this race. That's the 10 horse. I think the cutback will also suit him. And so,
absolutely.
So I think Doppelganger is an interesting horse. Christina, we hadn't planned for this, but do you have any thoughts on this? If not, we can certainly move on to the next one.
Well, just quickly, I mean, I think Papa Cap's had some trouble in a lot of his races. I think that his effort in the Lecomte was even better than it looks. He wasn't defeated all that far in that 3/4 of a length defeat. Same thing in some of his races in California. I thought he had a pretty good excuse in the Del Mar Futurity with a lot of trouble that day. But I was picking Jack Christopher going into the juvenile before so I'm pretty excited to see this horse come back, but definitely at those prices, if you get it, Papa Cap worth using and worth trying to upset.
I like it. I like the case Scott made. So a little bit of a price there, and maybe a a little bit of a price in the next race for me, which is going to be race 8, the Derby City Distaff on Saturday. I feel a pretty deep field here. Horses with some proven form, including over this track. We're starting off here with the true odds page, and note the pace projects to be slow note down on the bottom. That's what you get with every race here on Race Lens. It'll give you a sort of summary. Pace will be slow, pace will be fast. I think it's helpful just for a snapshot. Obviously, you do your own research and you come up with your own pace projection, but it helps to just get that snapshot. And I can tell you that this is consistent with what I saw when I looked at this race. There is not as much pace that you might expect for a 7 furlong sprint, especially one the caliber of the Derby City Distaff. And so with that in mind, I think that puts horses who, might, otherwise get some money just based on name and accomplishments, like Bell's the One, obligatory 4 races, and just one time. I think it puts them at a bit of a disadvantage because they're not going to have as much pace to run into, and they're really going to have to be in top form to win the race. I'm not saying any of those horses can make an impact with a slower pace, but certainly they've run their better races when the pace has been fast. So that brings me back to the horse on the rail, who I do believe is the fastest horse in the race. It's Lady Rocket. I just want to take a quick look back at the early stages. So here we're going to do it backwards. We're just going to watch the beginning of the Madison. Lady Rocket, you will see, is going to take sustained pressure. Going to do a quarter and 22 flat, 44 and 2, 3/4 and 109 and 3, and will still kick on. Will fade late. Will get past late, but is taking a good amount of pressure right here. You see down the rail, Lady Rocket taking pressure. Now again, it's token, but now you got a 3 wide move. So you've got 2 horses to her outside, and like I said, they're going to do some pretty quick, pretty honest splits. I will say, look, 22 flat, honest, 44 and 2, very honest. And again, they get to 3/4 and 109 and 3. And so I don't know that breaking from the rail, and you saw that she broke a little sluggishly there, breaking from the rail, she's going to have as much issue if she breaks cleanly, getting to the front and potentially slowing things down just a touch. The only horse who I think can potentially, and we could cut out of this now, I don't want to see her get past. So far, she looks great. She looks great, doesn't she?
Stop the race.
Exactly. So, I think the one horse who could potentially put on some token pressure is Edgeway. But Edgeway's coming out of races, smaller fields, and I think you put her into a spot like this, breaking from the 7 post, she may have a tactical advantage, but I don't think she's going to clear Lady Rocket. So I think she's going to have to take back off. And for me, Lady Rocket then becomes sort of your logical clear pace setter. And I just wanted to point out, the last race there last year too, just so you know, like this horse has kind of turned a corner. The 117 Equibase speed figure, when it's circled like that on Race Lens, that means that is the highest speed figure for any horse in this race. And so that, and if you haven't seen that replay, go watch it at some point. Go for one, super impressive. She makes a really just sustained move. And again, with horses inside and out, putting pressure on, and she just kind of kicked away. You can see 1 by 9 lengths, 117 Equibase speed figure. So for me, Lady Rocket, I think, has maintained that form. Second off the layoff here, Brad Cox, he's got her right, and I think she just takes that next step. And like I said, on these days, so many times, speed is good. Speed is really good. And so unless I see something that indicates to me that speed is coming back to him, Lady Rocket is going to be one of my strongest plays on Derby Day. And again, I don't want to put any of you guys on the spot. Scott or Christina, do you have any thoughts on this race? Have I missed something here?
I'll jump in. I don't think you have. Actually, when we were kind of deciding what alternate race to go with, this was almost the horse I picked and the way I was going too. I see everything that you do. I like Just One Time as well. I think both Brad Cox's horses are pretty tough. And the other thing I'll add to the Madison is I was there at Keeneland that day. It was the weekend that we had snow, rain, sleet, you name it, all in the same day. I think it's pretty excusable for any horse that might not have run well, given the conditions, given the severity of the weather, and given the way the track just changed throughout the day because of that weather. I think there were times when it was a little bit sticky out there. So I'd be willing to give her a pass sort of for the fade last time out.
All right. Christina, you can just continue rolling because you've got the next undercard race, and that's the Churchill Downs Stakes, race 10 on Saturday.
I'm going to jump ahead 2 races to race 10, the Churchill Downs, 7 furlongs for 4-year-olds and up. So we have the return of Aloha West in here, which is pretty exciting. A Breeders' Cup sprint winner from 2021 back at Del Mar. We haven't seen him since then. I think he's probably going to be ready. I think you don't bring a horse back like this unless they're really cranked up, especially on a day like this and, you know, in a spot this tough. But he is going to rally from off the pace, and there's a lot of speed in here, and speed that I don't think is going to come back at all. So I would not be surprised to see Aloha West win, but I am going to pick against him. You have to mention Jackie's Warrior. I mean, he's going to be the choice. He's 5-2 on the morning line. I thought his return race at Oaklawn in the Count Fleet was really impressive. And basically his entire career has been. The only times that he's had trouble has been the Breeders' Cup in both editions. And he's had an excuse in the juvenile because he didn't want to go that far. And then in the sprint, you know, there's a lot of speed that day. And he just couldn't quite keep up there, came away with, I think, a minor injury after the Breeders' Cup. But the horse I'm going to pick is the 6, Prevalence. And this is, I think, an example of just how great cards like these are. I mean, we get so excited for the Derby. We get so excited for the Oaks, but you would tell me I can get 6-1 or maybe better on a horse like Prevalence. I mean, that is a gift. I love this horse, the son of Medaglia d'Oro. He's out of the Go Sapper mare in Richmond. And I think if you consider the Godolphin runners over the last year or two and just how dominant they've been, and back to some of these mares and the class that they've continued to breed, these horses are getting better and better with age. And I think that Prevalence is one of those improving 4-year-olds. He comes off back-to-back wins. I think he's getting really good right now, and I'm projecting that he's going to continue to improve. I want to pick up the replay if we can in the Commonwealth. This was his last race at Keeneland. That same weekend, I was talking about just being so bizarre in terms of the weather and the racetrack, but it was no problem for him. This is a horse that, even though he might be bred to go a little further, he's pretty tactical. He goes very quickly in the early stages, those internal fractions, and it doesn't look very difficult for him. He's going to range up to the outside of some fast horses in here and do it pretty easily around the turn. And then Tyler Gaffleone just going to go ahead and shake him up a little bit. He'll pull clear by 2 1/4 lengths in the end. Definitely not as tough of a field that he caught in the Commonwealth as he's going to face on Saturday. This race is going to be a lot tougher, but I like this kind of a prep for him. I like the fact that he was able to continue on with those winning ways, and that I don't think they really had to stretch him too much. You'll see Gaffleone just kind of a strong hand ride. He might flag the whip a little bit here, use it one time, but he doesn't really have to ask this horse for his best. The research I did on Racelands was more in line with his trainer, with Brendan Walsh. Brendan Walsh is a guy that he actually worked for Godolphin for many, many years prior to coming to the States. He was an assistant for Eddie Keneally for a long time. And because of that initial placement and job that he had for Godolphin, he's been given a lot of these really nice horses, and he's continued to perform. He had 3 stakes wins at Gulfstream over the big Pegasus weekend, and he does really well at Churchill in these stakes races as well. I feel like he might not have always had the max field or the star of the day, but by the time you come away from the day, he has one of those stakes wins. So graded stakes here at Churchill, Brendan is 6 for 19. That's a 32% win rate, 63% in the money. And I do think you'll get a pretty good price on Prevalence. So he is going to be the horse for me, just kind of into the teeth of Jackie's Warrior. I know we're talking about a favorite. And then the last thing I wanted to check was the True Odds page, as usual, filter in there for late pace. I just thought this was interesting and something to take note of. It does make me a little nervous looking at Prevalence pretty far down the list there, but he's not that far off of Jackie's Warrior. And I think that's what sort of helped me. I think he's going to be close enough to Jackie's Warrior to pounce like he did in the Commonwealth. Hopefully he can hold off, and those early horses are well clear of the deep closers, so they're not able to catch him late.
I am glad that you took this race, because I struggled with this one, and I'm more than happy to ride a little bit of a price with you. You know, I mean, you look at that field, I mean, reinvestment risk, serious horse. Aloha West, you talked about Mind Control. I mean, $1.5 million in career earnings, always a threat at this distance too, always seems to show up at 7 furlongs, coming, second off a layoff. And then Cezanne, on the outside, first time now with Todd Fletcher, and retains Scott's favorite jockey, Flavian Pratt.
My favorite jockey too. Can we get him back in California? Give him back.
He's ours now. He's ours.
No, we're bringing him to Hawthorne, Illinois.
Like that he's ours, though. We're just gonna ride the success and claim that he's Californian.
Yeah. You raised him. But Scott, I'll give you the last word on this, and if you don't have one, we could just move on to the big one. You kick us off in the Derby.
I will probably be trying to get out of here with 2. I think it's going to be a controlled pace that Jackie's Warrior is going to be able to control. And if Jackie's Warrior is right, no one in this race is run as impressively as Jackie's Warrior. However, Jackie's Warrior, I'm not so sure is as good and might have peaked. It's hard to say. And Prevalence was my actually other pick, because I think Prevalence is going to be the one in the best spot if Jackie's Warrior is not right. I really think Prevalence has shown the ability that at 7 furlongs and even a mile, I just think these types of races are right up his alley. And if he continues to be able to show that he can finish with the type of pace figures he's been running recently, he should be right there. If Jackie's Warrior doesn't run one of those freak out Jackie's Warrior races like last year, where the horse was just unbeatable. I mean, there were times where he was just unbeatable last year, but if that doesn't happen, I like Prevalence a lot, and you might get a price. There are so many horses in that same odds range. It's crazy.
All right. Scott, you may be having a little bit of we're getting a little feedback there.
I don't know what happened there. It was echoing for a second.
Good timing though, as we're set to talk Derby. But yeah, let's give it a shot though. Let's move to the big one here. 20 horses as of this recording. Really, really intriguing, just like the Oaks. A very, very interesting edition of the Kentucky Derby. Scott, kick us off. Who do you like here and why?
I had no idea what to do with this race. I'm praying that I'm alive to a bunch of horses, because it is really giving me problems. I like Charge It. If I have to make a pick right now, I want to see the workout reports. I want to see a few other things. I think Charge It has the most upside. I think what Charge It was able to do in a third career start after hitting the gate and re-braking a couple times in that race. I'm not sure when I want to show the replay, because you and I both like the same horse, and the Florida Derby might be a common theme for everyone here, but the draws well. I think Saya, again, I like Louis Saez quite a bit. I'm really happy with that as a rider. And I just think when you look at the spot the Papa Cap should have cut off, Charge It kind of gets White Abarrio is the 7, Charge It's the 6 here. White Abarrio moves first, which ends up being the right move. Charge It actually starts to drop back. Super concerned if you're a fan of Charge It here. The distance is widening. You're like, what is going on? Then the crack of the whip comes, and Charge It's like, oh, I'm supposed to run now. Just starts making up crazy ground, but ends up being the widest of them all, which is, it's not ideal, and just never stops trying. Kind of seems to get lazy in the stretch again and be like, okay, then gets the whip again and re-breaks like a turf horse here, right there, hit, and all of a sudden just takes off again. Green as can be, veering in, veering out, can't figure it out. If this horse can run straight, not hit the gate, and kind of get a good spot, drew a good post with an aggressive jockey, I think the price you're going to get is going to be more than worth having a decent sized play to this horse. It's tough to take anyone with supreme confidence in this race, so I do want to price. I think the most likely horses that hit the board are Zandon and Modonical, but as much as people keep saying that they can race close to the pace, are they going to be close enough? Because in the Derby, you have not seen horses that aren't turning for home in the top flight win this race in a long time, since probably Orb. And I'm sorry if I'm still echoing. I'm trying to figure that out, but I just think Xandit and Modonical are ones I'm going to key underneath. I'm going to use them to win because I don't want to get beat, because I do think there's a chance that both of them are good enough to race more forwardly, but I would like to hear that be for sure the plan. Modonical drew the rail, which is a little tricky, not as tricky since we've done away with the auxiliary gate. So you're not running directly into the rail anymore, and you're not a front runner, so you might be able to get a good spot, but there's so much speed, so much chaos in the Derby, you could still get lost on there. Epicenter, I think, has the problem of drawing the 3 with the possible pace setter and being the 4 drawn right outside. I think that could be an issue. My issue with Smile Happy is that if that's the horse Mattress Mac picks to bet $3 million on, you're going to see the price ruined because it's a Run Happy. I don't know that he's going to do that, but it's something to watch out for. I think you would need a price, but I do think Smile Happy's talented. And then I think it's whoever gets the best trip out of Epicenter and Messier and Taba, White Barrio, Simplification, all the horses that can race forward. It's going to be a battle for position, and that seems to be the best trip in the Derby. It's just a matter of kind of, can you pick the right one with the best spot? And I just think it could be a bit of a mess. And will there be rain is another question. I mean, these are all the questions you have to answer. So I want a price, and I think Charge It has a lot of upside in the 4th career start with very good connections and some things that you don't usually see young horses do, as far as finish, re-break a couple times, and do all that with hitting a gate in a grade 1. I mean, if you watch the replay, I mean, it hit the gate pretty decently. I mean, that horse wanted to be more forward. We'll see, but I think he can get a really good spot.
Yeah, and not only did he hit a gate, I mean, hit the gate. There's also, he takes a pretty good bump from the horse who's inside as well. Kind of veers out into him after the break. So it's a lot of contact for a horse in his 3rd career race. And for all the reasons you pointed out, I'm also really high on Charge It. Christina, you're also looking for a price here. Walk us through who you landed on as a top selection.
Yeah, I'm going to echo what Scott said in terms of just like wrestling with myself after doing all the research and just back and forth and who is I going to pick, because there are so many horses that I think you could see winning the race this year. And maybe that sounds kind of naive to say because it's that way every year, but I think there's a lot more of evenly matched. We don't have a huge standout this year, not to take anything away from Epicenter, and that form has held up clear throughout. The horses that have run behind him have come back to win subsequent races. So I do think, he makes a lot of sense, and I wouldn't argue with anybody picking him. But the 2 that I really wrestled back and forth on were the 16 Cyberknife and the 10 Xandit. Ultimately, I went with Cyberknife. Let's take a look at the Arkansas Derby. And if we have time to watch the whole race, I'd like to, because I think this horse, what I really like most about him is how responsive he is to the rider. He's the number 8 horse in here, so take a look at him as they come out of the gate. There were quite a few horses that were forwardly placed in this race early. He jumps well, as does the horse to his outside. You can see that's Flavian Pratt on the outside. He's going to end up taking back on his runner. And Cyberknife ends up pretty wide into that first turn with Florent Geroux. He's actually, I think, trying to tuck him in at this point and maybe anchor back off some of the pace that day, but he ends up not really being able to do so. And Florent Geroux made a couple of moves in this race that were very decisive. At this point, when I was going back to rewatch the replay, I thought, okay, he's just going to tuck in, he's going to wait, he's going to sit along the rail. And then at some point, he'll go ahead and maybe try to split horses if he can, maybe even grab the rail if he can. But that doesn't happen. At about this point, Geroux decides to make a pretty decisive move. He says, okay, I see a spot. I don't want to end up 4 or 5 wide into the turn, so I'm just going to go for it. And he kind of opens up his hands on the reins a little bit and lets this horse push on through. The way that Cyberknife runs with his head kind of high and he's a little bit aggressive, but also responsive, reminds me a little bit of Monomoy Girl. And I think Flo gets along with these horses really well. He's able to kind of stop and start as he wants to, goes ahead and turns this horse clear at this point, going to come up outside of the big long shot along the inside and pull clear. He holds off Barbara Road, who's a horse that always kind of comes with that rally, makes up some ground. He holds off Secret Oath. We talked about her a little bit earlier and all the trouble that she had. And then I started to look back just at the overall form for Cyberknife. I mean, I can't really find anything wrong. He's 3 for 6 lifetime, but He was DQ'd and placed second in his debut. So he did cross the wire first that day. The only bad race he has was the Lecomte where they put the blinkers on. And obviously everything didn't work out with the equipment. They immediately took the blinkers off. And maybe because he's kind of one of those high-headed, high-energy types, restricting his vision wasn't really a good thing. That's the only time that he ran into Epicenter. And whereas I think you can kind of compare a lot of other horses with regard to Epicenter, I don't think it's fair to compare how good Cyberknife can be against Epicenter because that was his worst race and he didn't really kind of get a fair shot. I pulled some research. Brad Cox, technically he's a Derby winner off Mandaloun last year, but he didn't really get to enjoy that win and, relish in it like he does. But over the years, his horses that have run in the Derby have continued to run well and kind of peaked at that time. I think he does a really good job cranking horses up to a certain point. 3-year-olds on dirt in graded stakes here at Churchill. It's a smaller number because you're getting so specific, but you have 6 wins from 17 starts. That's 35%, 53% in the money. And you also look at the Dam's past performances. I was curious about her and what she's done. She was 11 for 33 lifetimes. She continued to get better with age. You can see quite a few stakes races into the later portion of her career. I think Cyberknife has always been good, but you could argue that he's still going to continue to get better. He's also training really well. I've been watching the Churchill Downs morning shows. I think the 2 horses that have been the most impressive, I'll say 3 actually, in the mornings are Zandon, Cyberknife, and Crown Pride, actually. He's really kind of opened a lot of eyes with his training out there. So that's what ultimately pushed me in the direction of Cyberknife. I do want to talk about Zandon quickly. Let's go to him. He's the 10. And one of the there's so many things to like. I mean, he gets Flavien Prat, all of our favorite jockey, it sounds like. And then the True Odds page, if you want to filter for late pace, he has the highest late pace figure of the field, and it's by a pretty good margin. I mean, that goes a long way. This horse is going to be finishing. I have all of the confidence in the world for Flavien Prat to put him in the right spot. And he has such great reach on his stride. I mean, he's going to be rolling down the middle of the track when they turn for home. The only thing that gave me pause on Zandon was the last quarter mile of the Risen Star. If we could take a look at that, it's the race 2 back, I think, on his past performances. That's the Bluegrass. We'll jump right back 2 races back. I think it's fair to say that maybe he wasn't fully cranked up for this race. It was his first race in his 3-year-old season, but this is when he runs into Epicenter. It is when he runs into Smile Happy. He was actually pretty wide and he ends up earning a better figure than some of the horses that finished ahead of him. But as they came for home, he just idled a little bit. And I didn't love the fact that he sort of flattened out. So what worried me was, did he just love the track with a little bit of moisture in the Bluegrass? And is that why we saw such a big performance from him? Now, that's something to consider if we do get the rain that we're expecting Thursday, Friday, if there is any moisture in the track, then he kind of moves up a little bit. But if it's a true fast track as he had in the fairgrounds, I didn't like the way he idled a little bit at this point. So that's what pushed me to Cyberknife. I can definitely see Zandon getting a piece of it. I could say that for a lot of horses in here. And Dan, the other horse that I like that I think you do as well is Smile Happy. Smile Happy was sort of forced to move a little early in the Bluegrass, I thought, with Corey Lanerie. Corey Lanerie is, I believe, the 4th all-time leading rider at Churchill Downs. So I know that he's going to be able to make a move when he wants to. I have a lot of confidence in him in that race. And I did pull some research on Run Happy because I was a little bit worried about the offspring of Run Happy at the 1.25 mile distance. And I was very surprised to see that there's only a few of them that have tried it, but it's pretty strong at 10 furlongs. You have one horse by the name of Happy American who is 2 for 2 at 10 furlongs. And then you have another offspring of Run Happy that's, I believe, hit the board or won. Yeah, the Circus, which is a hurdles horse. We're going beyond 10 furlongs with that one. So surprised by the stamina that Run Happy can give to his offspring. Smile Happy is out of a Pleasant Tap mare, plenty of stamina there as well. So he's another one that I thought, wouldn't surprise. And I think you will get that big price. His training hasn't wowed me. That concerned me a little bit. I just don't think he's moving as fluidly as some of the other horses. So Cyberknife on top. Zandon, couldn't argue with you, couldn't argue on a lot of these horses, but I'm going to end up on Cyberknife for Brad Cox.
I like it, and I like that replay that you showed. And Cyberknife is one of these horses here who I have kind of, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because some of the the softer efforts earlier on, I just kind of was like, oh, I don't know, this horse isn't at the level with the rest of these. But the way he finished up, and like you said, it was just so push button for Florent, and just kind of like he had a couple of gears, and like that's what you need in the Derby. That there's a lot of stop and start. And, the more I think about him, and with your endorsement, and with some of the trucks moving behind me here, I kind of like Cyberknife. So yeah, I'm sold there. I'm also sold on Smile Happy, as you mentioned. I thought that big move late from off the pace to finish second. Was impressive, and he also traveled, weaved in and out of some traffic there. I really think there's some upside here with Smile Happy, and I think maybe to a certain extent, maybe just sort of psychologically, I've kind of like downgraded this horse because, I'm associating him with all the interviews I've seen from Mattress Mac, and I'm just like, oh, this is just like a fun, crazy thing, and like Scott said, he's probably going to be betting on the actual favorite, and it's not going to be Smile Happy. But I don't know. I for whatever reason, I haven't taken this horse seriously. But just look at that. I mean, he hasn't finished worse than second in 4 races, and he's had some excuses. I think otherwise he would have finished much closer in both losses. I think he still loses both of those races, the Risen Star and the Bluegrass, but I think he can make it a little closer with a better trip. So I do like Smile Happy. My one concern with him is in being objective about it. A mile and an eighth. He's kind of flattening out in the very late stages. Maybe it was because of trip. Maybe it's because he's just not meant to run much further than that. Going a mile and a quarter, I feel like he may be slowing down late as opposed to picking up steam. So that's one concern with Smile Happy. And in terms of just a couple of other horses to discuss, I told you, Scott, I'd like Charge It with you. There's a bit of research that I pulled up on Tap It. And this is just to kind of show you some of the tools here, some what you have at your disposal. You can customize specifically mile and a quarter races if you want to just filter by mile and a quarter races. And so even though I knew I'd get somewhat smallish sample, I went ahead and I did it. And you can see 10 of 24 Tap It horses in graded stakes specifically going a mile and a quarter. 10 of the 24 finished in the money, 17% winners. And then you have the option of going out and kind of looking at the whole field. And you can see that that's the largest sample of any. Largest sample because, I mean, Tap It is producing horses who can run this distance. And they have. And you see that the results there, percentage-wise, are better than just about anybody. I mean, you got the Empire Maker there, Bessier. 2 of his horses have run this distance. One of them is 1. Of course, that's not a very large sample. With Tap It, you got a large sample. I think this horse, Charge It, as green as he was in the lane in the Florida Derby, if he figures things out just a little bit, poses a real threat and is a win contender. And at the very least, barring any unforeseen major trip traffic, I'd have a hard time envisioning Charge It finishing off the board, to be honest. I'm that confident in him. And like Taiba, who we talked about, where there's just all this potential and these huge speed figures, you do have to ask the question once they're there, once the crowd is roaring and once they're entering the gate with 19 other horses, how are they going to react? We don't know the answer to that. I mean, you could do some visual handicapping on the fly, and I'd suggest that you do that before you put down a massive bet on one of these horses to win. Just kind of take a look and try to feel out how they're reacting to all the energy around them, and make an assessment from there. But for me, just based on what we've seen in replays so far in their races to date, Charge It and Taiba are 2 horses with just incredible upside. Scary to think that we haven't seen the best of Taiba after winning the Santa Anita Derby. It's just a second start. So, and I think the interesting thing with Taiba, and this is maybe something I want to kick back to you guys, is, there is sort of this unspoken thing, right? Where, Tim Yakteen has taken over training of Bob Baffert's horses. And, again, maybe just subconsciously just thinking about how the public is going to perceive that, maybe there isn't as much enthusiasm to bet these horses as there would have been in past years had they been trained by Bob Baffert. So I don't know if anybody wants to touch that one, but I'll throw it out there, and first one to answer gets it.
West California, you're up.
I think you're right. I think it's a combination of things. I think that you get so many bettors that are just tuning in on Derby Day because it's the Kentucky Derby and they're not the same folks that have been playing, all year long, that it will go over a lot of people's heads that this was a Bob Baffert horse. I unfortunately, I think a lot of the coverage on TV is going to be about that. I think, Bob's not in the Derby, but it's still going to be a Derby a little bit about Bob. But I think Taiba actually, when you talk about just if he's going to be able to handle things, Dan, I'm less worried about Taiba handling things than Charge It. Charge It, Todd Fletcher has said very often, is a typical tap it. And when you talk about the horses like that, they're horses that are nervous, horses that get a little bit overwhelmed. So I would keep a really close eye on Charge It from that perspective. Taiba's very laid back, almost too laid back, which is why he's kind of a poor workhorse. A lot of his works are not going to be impressive. They never have been. But he knows the difference between practice and game time. And that's why he comes with his big runs in the afternoon. What worries me about Taiba is the training. Timmy Octane has had to take his time with him. He got a little bit of a fever at one point after the Santa Anita Derby. That's why he's only had one work prior to now. And I think they blew him out a little bit, 3 furlongs this morning. It was a very average time, but that's what you're going to get from Taiba. I think Crown Pride went 2 seconds faster this morning in that little 3 furlong blowout. So he's the horse to me that he's the fastest horse in the race, really, but he hasn't done anything wrong. But is he fit enough for a 1.25 miles? I'm more concerned about his fitness than his mental aspects.
Yeah, and I'm concerned about getting in a Rock Your World situation with both Charge It and Taiba, where it's the experience isn't there, and if something goes wrong, can they handle it? I mean, Charge It showed he could overcome some, but that's also very good information that you think Charge It is a bit of a head case, because that is a huge problem. Because there's just such a long run up to this race. There's so much time for the horses to freak out, and you can listen. They'll start telling you on some of the broadcasts that when this horse tried to get loose, or this horse reared up in the. I mean, there's like so many things that can happen. So you do have to pay attention, and that's good info that you're more worried about Charge It and.
And I mean,
not what I wanted to hear, but
you do have Todd Fletcher. I think if you really think about it, like anywhere, all the time, when do you see Todd Fletcher's horses act up? They really don't. I mean, I can think back to Quality Road before the Breeders' Cup Classic, loading into the gate. That's kind of the only real distinctive, like, Todd Fletcher horse acting up that I can think of. I think he does such a good job, but I think for Charge It, because he was so good early, he never had to learn anything in those first 2 races because he was just faster than everybody else.
Yeah.
Learned something in the Florida Derby because he finally sort of met some real competition. I think he moves forward a ton out of that race. And I think if anybody can have him mentally ready, it's Todd.
Absolutely.
Want to mention one more horse here. And it's going to kind of lead into one of our final discussions here. And that's related to pace. So we're looking at Barber Road here. The pace projects to be, I think, fairly hot. Whenever you have 20 horses, by simple, the law of sort of laws of averages and likelihood of there being speed runners, there are a handful of them in here, and I think the pace will be hot. And we could take a look at true odds in a moment to kind of see what that pace looks like. But this is a horse who is always moving late. You look at those finishes; he's always coming on late. You kind of just go across the board. Arkansas Derby, second, big move from off the pace. Rebel Stakes, another move from off the pace, finishes third, beaten half a length. The Southwest, farther back early, finishes within a length and a half, always making a big move, gets more distance here. The other thing I like here, you see there we're highlighting that big win there, that 6 1/4 length win, Churchill Downs. His third career start, wins by 6 1/4 lengths. Now, granted, that's a starter allowance. Not quite at the level of the horses he's going to be facing on Saturday. But still, you like to see some form over the track, comes back, runs that 96, highlighted in green there, his best career Equibase speed figure. Where did that race happen? Churchill Downs. This is a horse, you like to see that if you get it. It's another box you could check off, a horse you don't have to worry. I mean, granted, those were sprints, but obviously the horse seems to like the track. All reports here this week that Barber Road has been, has looked really good in the mornings. And, I think given the fact that the horse's running style is one in which we've seen him close into some paces to a pace that haven't always been that fast. When we know it's going to be fast here in the Derby, I think you got to like him even more. Even if Ray Lou Gutierrez is riding, and he once rode Secret Oath back in the day, and Scott wasn't happy with that ride. We now have him on Barber Road, and I think he's riding a good wave here. Right? And I also want to mention his horse Hidden Connection on Friday in the Kentucky Oaks. I think is one that we haven't spoken about, but is one who, was within a nose of beating Echo Zulu last out. And so I think she merits some respect as well. But I do want to talk about the pace. We go to the True Odds page. As I mentioned, it's going to back up what I just discussed there a moment ago, that there will be a speed duel early on here. They have Taiba going out. They have Messi there. Then you see Zandon there in the middle stages. But I think there are a bunch of horses you could see buying for it. Summer is Tomorrow coming in from Dubai has speed. Those are some of the other early speeds. Zozos is a horse with a ton of speed. Pioneer Medina, always forwardly placed. Epicenter from the 3-hole has to go. Obviously, I think it's going to be a fast pace. Scott, am I wrong?
If Zandon's in that spot early, look out. That would be like a huge upgrade to his running style, which would give me no concern about. I mean, that horse can finish like crazy. If Zandon's in that spot, I am extremely worried. I would be surprised if they take Taiba and put him on the lead, or if both of the acting horses are 1-2 early. But California speeds kick California speed. I mean, you never know. I mean, it's possible. There's just so many unknowns. I really hope Chargett's closer than where they have him. I think I've been hearing some rumblings that the pace setter could be Summer is Tomorrow, the 4. They don't have really data on the ship, the horses shipping in and this pace projector, but I think you can easily put the 4 up in there, which I think is Epicenter's biggest problem, because I think the 4 is going to gun for the lead. And then what does Epicenter do? You have a decision to make immediately. I really liked Epicenter before I saw the draw. Now I had to back off a bit. And then what are some of these big time closers? What are they going to do? That's why like horses can, Cyberknife rate a little bit closer. I mean, I get what you're saying on Barber Road, but we'll learn a lot, I think, by Secret Oath. I mean, if Secret Oath runs off the screen or runs a huge race, I mean, you could upgrade those two's chances. If it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't mean it's over, but it gives me a little bit more pause about how good the Arkansas Derby was, because that was your favorite before the trip. There's just so many things you just gotta watch. I mean, this pace is gonna be so interesting. I mean, I think if you talk to 5 different people, they have 5 different ideas who's gonna set the pace in this race, and that makes it very difficult. But I think a horse like Summer is Tomorrow is going to try. And somebody compared the jockey, because I don't know anything about the jockey or how to say his name, but somebody was comparing him to the French, like saying that he was like the French or wherever he's from, Paco Lopez, where he's super aggressive and is going to go for the lead. So if that's the case, I mean, saving the ground early, I mean, if that horse wants to make the lead, that horse probably makes the lead, because I don't know if anybody else like absolutely wants it that bad. And I think then you're gonna have horses coming from the way outside that want to be forward, like Zozos and horses like that. I mean, you're gonna have like a bit of a chaotic situation going on there. So it's just like, it's so crucial to have a jockey that can see it and put your horse in a good spot. Like I said, man, Epicenter is going to have to make a decision right away, because if that horse wants to be forward, I mean, you're going to have to gun it, and if Summer Tomorrow is gunning it, you have instant hot pace right away. So I agree with you that the pace will be hot, because there's a lot of horses that are going to be trying to get that forward position early. And anybody who's ever watched the Derby recently, you need to be in that first flight or that second flight to win the Derby anytime in the last like 7 or 8 years. So it will be interesting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a hot pace too. I think you're right about the 4. I think Summer is Tomorrow is going to go out there. And then I think even though the pace projector didn't have Messier up and involved, I think he will be. He's a really big horse. I think he's a horse that you can't really get in trouble. And Johnny V on any of these horses from Bob Baffert, Tim Yak-Teensbarn, this is how he's been riding them. And this is how they've won so many races, not only, at the larger levels, but just day to day in Southern California. And I think 'tis the bomb. I think they're going to send him as much as they can. I don't know if he's fast enough, but he can't handle any kickbacks. So you have a horse like that maybe you can't stick with him late, but he is going to be involved early. And from that spot, he's going to force some others like Charge It, like Pioneer of Medina, to make a move because he's going to jump ahead of them for one of those early tracking positions. And I think Mike Smith is going to send Taba too. I mean, honestly, if he doesn't have the experience, the only thing you can do is try to help keep him out of trouble. So the best way to do that is to be up and involved early. And he has the California speed to keep up. I think it's definitely going to be a much faster pace than we've seen in the last handful of years.
The
My
question
concern about
go ahead.
My concern about Taba is that sometimes when Mike Smith wins closing, he thinks he's on Zenyatta again, and then he just tries to close. I hope you're right. I hope because I want to have some tickets live to Taba too, because I think Taba's going to get a little overlooked. I hope that he's forward, but I just always worry about him. Sometimes he just gets these ideas that he needs to sit back and make that bigger. I mean, he didn't sit crazy far back, but he sat off. And if he thinks that's the way to go, it is a little concerning. I agree with Messier. It's going to be a battle for position early. And sometimes Mike lets them go when that type of things happen. But I mean, Taba could easily, if Taba wants to go, Taba has the talent to just try to take that Justify ride and just go for it and just try to take them all the way. I mean, like you said, that is the best way to not get into trouble. That's what Rock Your World I was hoping was going to do last year, but just got souped and sandwiched out of the gate and just absolutely almost fell off the damn horse. I mean, like, it was horrible, but it's just the risky run. I mean, horses are going to be going at it. There's going to be tough trips. It's so hard to single in spots like these because your single could be, torn up in 2 seconds coming out of the gate because you have uncontrollable circumstances. Happens all the time. So it'll be interesting. I hope they send Taba.
All right, we've got 2 minutes here. My battery's running low. Time is running low. So in summary, real quick, Christina, your top three are?
Cyberknife, Zandon, and then I don't know where I'd go third. I'd probably Smile Happy. I mean, I just like so many horses is my problem. But yeah,
All right.
I'll Cyberknife, Zandon, Smile Happy.
Scott?
Charge It, Taba with an asterisk because I need to hear more about the plan. It would have been Epicenter if it wasn't for that damn draw. And it'd be Zandon if Zandon can race more forwardly.
All right, I'm gonna go Charge It. I'm gonna go a horse that I haven't even spoken about, but I actually secretly like, Messier, in the second spot, and then I'm gonna go Barber Road third. I think Cyberknife and Taiba are not too far off. So I'm leaving out Epicenter and Zandon. Probably gonna regret that. But don't have any regrets if you're watching this. Get in on Stats Race Lens. Now is the time. Best promotions of the year happen around Kentucky Derby. If you've never been a customer of Race Lens, $1 promotion right now. Use promo code RLM1E, dollar monthly unlimited Race Lens subscription. If you want to get in on the regular price quarterly subscription, the regular quarterly subscription, it is $2.99 usually. It is $99 right now. The promo code there is TCRL99. There are also discounts on premium PPs. We will be posting more about this, tweeting about it. If you have any other questions, follow up with us, send us a note, send us messages, and go to Equibase for all those promos on Derby Week. Everyone, have a happy Kentucky Derby 2022. We wish you lots of luck. Thank you for tuning in. For Christina, for Scott, I'm Dan. We'll see you next time.